Thank you very much, Vish. Welcome, everyone. We really appreciate your time and the fact that you have expressed this interest over the last several days, and understand that we have been getting quite a bit of feedback. And we also noticed that as we have been going through the islands, that there has been some request or interest in the whole IFRS 9 reporting due to its complexity and the amount of calculations that has to be done. We've responded to that call, and along with our strategic partners, Jet Global, using a tool that you'll be able to see more practically today, we were able to design such a report for one such client who is actually using it now. So I know we have a packed time schedule. So without any further ado, I'm just going to go right into it, and I'm going to start by sharing my screen. If someone can just tell me, Vishal, I'm not sure if you're able to see my screen, or if someone can see my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
I can see your screen, yes.
All right, thank you very much. So IFRS 9, what is it? What is it all about? And the requirements associated with IFRS 9. Well, IFRS 9 is an international financial reporting standard. That's the acronym IFRS. And this was published by the International Accounting Standards Board, the IASB. And if you're having a discussion about IFRS 9 in particular, IFRS 9 surrounds three main topics. One, there's a classification and measurement of financial instruments. There's also what is referred to as the impairment of financial assets. And there's a third, but yet just as crucial or critical, hedge accounting. So IFRS 9 therefore specifies how an entity should both classify and measure financial assets, financial liabilities, and some contracts to buy or sell non-financial items. IFRS 9 therefore requires that it is important for an entity to recognize this financial asset or financial liability in its statement of financial position when it becomes party to the contractual provisions of the very instrument. And then at initial recognition, an entity must measure, it measures this financial asset or financial liabilities at what is known as its fair value. So we will dive a little deeper in one of the three characteristics, which is impairment. And impairment has three stages. And at stage one, under impairment, we're saying that as soon as a financial instrument is originated or purchased, there's a 12-month expected credit losses, right? If they should arise, they are recognized in the profit and loss, and a loss allowance is established. So you're given a window of 12 months to do that analysis. And this therefore serves as a proxy for the initial expectations of credit losses. So therefore you'll do, if you are reporting, say for instance, in 2018, you do an analysis of your 2017 period, and let that become the basis to guide you in how you do either your accruals or your provisions for 2018, using as an example. Now you have stage two, which says if the credit risk increases significantly and is not considered low, then full lifetime expected credit losses are recognized. You must recognize them in the profit or loss account. And then finally, stage three, which says if the credit risk of financial assets increases to the point that it is considered credit impaired, interest revenue is calculated based on the amortized costs, that is the gross carrying amount less the loss allowance. So let me paraphrase stages 2 and 3 together so that I can put it in much better context. On the IFRS 9, they're actually saying as part of the true and fair valuation of these assets and even liabilities, you have to take into consideration other types of risks or credit risks. And these risks might even be external to the organization. For example, at this particular client where we did implement the IFRS 9 reporting using the Jet Reports tool, they had to consider risks, for instance, in the area of hurricanes, because the hurricane is a high risk factor that could impact on their ability to collect on accounts receivables. Another thing that they also had to take into consideration is the change in government policies. Because as you know, in a lot of Caribbean territories, sometimes when there's a change in government, there usually tends to be a change in fundamental policies. So therefore, these are the additional risk factors that have to be considered when you are looking at IFRS 9 and in the context of, say, for instance, receivables, and how would you therefore calculate or account for the provisions. So if I were to summarize, therefore, we're saying that for IFRS 9, the classification determines how financial assets and financial liabilities are accounted for in financial statements, and in particular, how they are measured on an ongoing basis. And IFRS 9 therefore introduces a logical approach for the classification of financial assets. And this is driven by cash flow characteristics and the business model in which an asset is held. And this new model also results in a single impairment model being applied to all financial instruments, thereby removing a source of complexity associated with previous accounting requirements. So therefore, the approach for IFRS 9 is that you're saying you're using a standard approach that can be applicable across a wide variety of instruments. So before I hand over to Aaron, I'd just like to quickly show you, just in quick form, with the tool, we were able, with the Jet tool, to quickly just develop a quick IFRS 9 report for this particular client in the Eastern Caribbean. And I'll just give you a brief overview of what this Excel spreadsheet is saying. So in looking at the IFRS 9 aged receivables for 2018, the first approach, for those of you who might be familiar with IFRS 9, is that in your step one, you look at historical data on payments on credit sales for 2017. So what you're doing is analyzing the performance of credit sales as well as payments on those credit sales in 2017. And then based on that, coming up with rates, what we call default rates, to be applied and used against the receivables for 2018. So here, in using the tool, as I'm really pushing so that I can get Aaron to jump right in the tool, so I'm hoping to really get you all excited for this. This step one actually does an analysis of all the invoices for 2017 and what was paid in 2017. So for by way of example, we're seeing that in 2017, we had $10 million worth of credit sales. And we analyzed this $10 million, and we were basically able to age the payments made over the 12-month period, and then what was collected, whether between 0 to 30 days, 31 to 60 days, 61 to 180 days, etc. By therefore applying the amounts that were paid, we now have what was unpaid. And we're saying here is that 200,000 of the total $10 million was unpaid at the end of a year. We then come up with default rates. So these measures basically show, if we look at the formula, for instance, 0.04, we're saying of the $5 million that was unpaid, 200,000 was still uncollected after 12-month period. So therefore it gives a default rate of 0.04. After going through that calculation, You may remember I said the IFRS 9 also takes into consideration externalities, risk factors. So in the case of this particular organization, they also had to take into consideration the level of unemployment. So the unemployment rate and its impact on their ability to collect. And after applying factors to these three identified risk factors of unemployment rate, hurricane rather, and the change in government, they came up with a revised figure which now becomes the basis right here of a revised default rate. So this revised default rate takes into consideration their standard default rate adjusted for external risks. And it is this adjusted default rate that is now applied against the receivables in 2018. And in applying it against the receivables in 2018, they were able to come up now with an expected provision for the year 2018. So this was just an idea to give you an idea to kind of whet your appetites of the IFRS 9 report and how easy it is to run this report. And we were able to develop this report by just simply using a tool that I will tell you something, I give it full kudos, and that's the Jet reporting tool. But I don't want to steal the thunder of my friend Aaron. So what I'll do at this point is just pass you over to Aaron and ask Aaron to continue the presentation as he introduces the Jet reports and the Jet reporting tools. Aaron, over to you.
Thank you, Steve, for that great introduction. Hope everybody's doing well so far. So yeah, today we're going to look at how we can use Jet Analytics to help better handle these IFRS reporting demands. Obviously, first thing people think about with those can be the regulatory requirements and just making sure those get met. But there's a lot of opportunity for improvement in the organization as well with utilizing a reporting methodology like this as well. Makes it easier to compare your business against other businesses. It could cross your past performance, makes it better visibility into your performance, your day-to-day operations. And so what Jet Analytics can do to help with this, as you guys know, reporting out of AX, it can be a bit of a burden. It's a challenging system to manage effectively, pulling all your data, bringing it into the right places, managing all these calculations that you need to account for to make sure you're compliant with IFRS. And so where Jet Analytics comes into play is we optimize that data so it's ready to go for reporting for your organization. That means whether it's starting with your AX data, bringing in data from your other systems, as I know more and more organizations are finding that the ERP isn't enough to house all their data. There's also warehousing systems, inventory systems, payroll systems, CRMs. And so what we focus on here is taking all of that, putting it all together and giving you one unified data set that gives you the information you need, and that you can set the logic behind as well for things like calculations, ways you manage those asset evaluations, how you measure those, how you calculate those. With analytics, everything's built into a data warehouse in cubes. And so you have an accurate, governed, one version of the truth for your whole organization. Jet, we're very unique in how we deploy this. Since we're so dynamics focused, we actually have pre-built projects with a pre-built data warehouse and cubes for sales, finance, inventory, AP, AR, and purchasing, even manufacturing cubes if you have a need for them. And so we have a solution that we can roll out of the box that gets you quite a bit down the road towards having your analytics deployment up and running, having a full-fledged BI solution in place. But we're also ready to customize, because obviously you're going to have your own aspects of your business that are unique, that require custom calculations, custom metrics to be built into there. And that's something that we'll work with as well. And so just kind of at a high level, walking through really what we're doing here. We're starting with your AX database. As you guys know, it's a complex web of tables and fields, all specific relationships between them. And it can be a bit of a data overload when you're trying to report against this and you're thinking about all the different tables you have to string together to be able to compile these reports. But when you bring in a data warehousing solution, we're organizing that data by subject matter. We're optimizing it for reporting. We're making sense of that data, compiling it in a way where it becomes very easy and intuitive for users to be able to report against it. And as I mentioned before, that's going to include pulling in those additional data sources, inventory systems, warehousing systems, point of sales, whatever other data demands you have, we can bring it all into the fold here. And then from there, we'll also spin up cubes, which add dimensionality and give us everything pre-calculated in every combination possible. So important metrics, important KPIs, the logic behind how you evaluate these assets, how you evaluate your cost of goods sold, managing those calculations to be compliant with IFRS, that logic can all be built into the data model. So when you're pulling up and querying data, either in your formal reporting or in ad hoc nature, you're going to be able to get the data that has the calculations you need, and those are going to be presented accurately. And so that's really where the value lies. Anytime you're talking about a business intelligence solution, it's where it's in this data model. And so obviously our pre-built project is going to help a long ways in speeding up that deployment and ensuring that it's an effective solution. But we also have tools to support it beyond that. We have this a backend tool called the Jet Data Manager we're going to get a quick look at today as well, that basically manages all the SQL coding and ETL processes for you, and so you can design and make customizations to the underlying data model 5 times faster than traditional BI methodology with this tool. And then from there, once your data is optimized, you can consume it and use it however you'd like with the Jet add-in directly in Excel, leveraging data visualization tools like Microsoft's Power BI. Really, it's open to you how you want to consume the data, but you're going to be able to do so with the confidence that that data is controlled, governed, and put together in a way that makes sense for your business, ensuring you're getting the insights you need to for that. And so I want to walk you through a little bit and see just how easy it can be to use a tool like this, both on the front end for the end users designing reports, but then also for the IT folks who may be trying to do some administration of this or customization of the data warehouse and cubes. And so with that in mind, I'd like to introduce Matthew Fisher, our solutions engineer here, who's going to be able to walk you through a few examples and show you what this looks like in action. Matthew, I'm just going to hand over presenter to you.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. And I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully I'm going to share it properly. Could you just let me know when you can see me?
Looks good.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, thank you, Aaron. I'm just going to jump right in here. Like Aaron was saying, I'm going to give you just kind of a taste of the Jet Reports reporting tool, which works in conjunction with data that is created with our backend tool, which is within the Jet Analytics system, okay? And the reason I'd like to show you a little bit about the Jet Analytics, the backend tool, is because that's very, very important, particularly when you're talking about connecting to an AX system or a Dynamics 365 F&O system. The AX data model has gotten very, very complex over the years. It contains many, many different tables and fields, and more than I've ever seen in an ERP package. And the Jet analytics and reporting system makes it very easy to access that data. And the main end goal being to present that data to your end users so that it's easy for them to extract the data out of the system into reports, okay? So I'm gonna start out here just with an Excel spreadsheet here. Our Jet reporting engine is an Excel add-in. So basically it's gonna install into a regular Excel environment. As you can see, I've got a Jet ribbon up here with menu options, okay? Usually it's great news, especially to a finance group, that we are an Excel add-in because that means you don't have to give up your Excel, okay? Finance people, they live and breathe Excel day in and day out, so they don't, they already know Excel. So the learning curve to learn how to build and maintain reports is going to be a lot shorter because they're already in a familiar environment. We're not going to hijack or take over any of that Excel functionality. All of that is still going to be here. And you're going to see that also when I go through some of the report structure. What we're doing is we're basically enhancing, we're adding to that Excel functionality, and we're kind of using it in conjunction with Jet Reports just to make report writing easier and more efficient, okay? So the first thing I'd like to do, I'm going to show you a couple of examples of some ad hoc reporting, and then I'm going to go into a few examples of some reports that are downloadable from our website. We have a pretty extensive library of report samples that can be just downloaded. There's nothing that we don't charge for them or anything. They're free from our website. You download those, you connect them into your chart of accounts and your system, and then they're good to go, and you're able to run them from there. But let's start out with, let's say that I just want, maybe I want a transaction list out of my general ledger, okay, something pretty simple, okay? One of my favorite tools in the design area here is the browser, okay? I'm gonna click on browser. What the browser does is it goes out to a data source and it displays all of the tables on the left-hand side and all of the fields on the right, okay? And now bear in mind, these tables are in a data warehouse. They're not directly out of AX. So the table structure that I was talking about earlier, I believe I think it's up to over 7,000 different tables in the F&O environment. You don't have to sift through 7,000 tables and however many fields are represented in those tables to find your data. We've already done that on the back end. We've created this data warehouse. So we've created these tables and fields that are much more friendly and easier to find for you, okay? An example, I'm looking for general ledger transactions. I've got a general ledger transactions table here. I'm gonna select that. On the right-hand side are my fields. So let's say I want maybe a report with a business unit header. I want my account number. I'm just holding my control key down here, transaction date, and then of course, the amount, okay? So I just held my control key down, I selected those four. I'm just gonna drag those over and just drop them inside my Excel sheet, okay? As you can see, it pretty much constructed the basic structure of the report for me. This transaction date field, I'm gonna throw some formatting on that. I want that to be a date format, obviously. And then this, I'm gonna format an accounting format, okay? Well, if I ran a general ledger transaction report like this, it might take some time because that's a lot of transactions, especially in a production database. You might have millions and millions of records. We don't really have time to wait for that today. So what I want to do is I want to give some parameters here to kind of filter this data down, okay? I'm going to do that using report options, okay? Report options allow you to define filters on the data, excuse me, but also they allow you to allow the user, when they're running that report, to change those filters at runtime, okay? It's really handy, okay? So let's add a filter here for business unit. For right now, I'm just gonna grab all of them. For my filters, I can also do a lookup. So I want to look up out of my business units table the business unit name, okay? And then also maybe I want to throw a filter on the transaction date, okay, the date range. Just like I said, I don't want to return a million records. I just want a subset of those records. So I'll give it a range here. Those are report options. Now, the final step I want to do is I want to apply those report options as a filter on my report, okay? This particular row, it's going to return everything. Here's my filter area. So I've got a business unit name filter. I want to insert a report option that I created, that business unit. And then I also want to restrict it by transaction date, right? Again, by one of those report options, okay? All right, so now I'm ready to run my report. By the way, up until now, I've been in design mode. That's why you're seeing some of these kind of funky values up here. This first row and first column are reserved for keywords in JET, okay? Those keywords are hidden during runtime. This is another example, this column D here. Those are just some JET specific things that are going to be hidden. I'm going to hit the run button here. Run is going to, first of all, bring up those report options for me. So as a user, I can change this. Maybe for business unit, I'm going to use the lookup. Maybe I only want the chemical business unit, okay? Transaction date, I've got a range in there. I can change that if I want to. Once I actually run this, then it's going to go out and it's going to, first of all, hide those keywords, hide all of that technical jargon, all right? And it's just going to render the data and the report, okay? So you can see I've got several rows here. It only took a couple of seconds to return that data, okay? So that's an example of an ad hoc, just an ad hoc report out of like your finance module. Another thing that's great to note is that you don't have to, you're not restricted in the module that you report from, okay? This browser, I could go against accounts payable transactions if I wanted to, or receivables transactions, sales, inventory, anything. Any of those modules, that's all available to me, okay? So that's all well and good, but I want to do some kind of a little bit more fancy stuff. So another way of ad hoc reporting, probably my favorite, is through pivot tables and going against not the data warehouse, but the cubes, okay? So I'm going to click on pivot table here. We want to create a pivot table based on our data. And wait for this dialog to come up here. There we go. And I've got a set of cubes. These are the cubes that are available out of the box to me. Okay, I'm going to grab some information out of our sales cube. Okay, this is going to bring up a pivot table dialog. Okay, I've got my different components on the right-hand side. I want to grab, let's just create like a simple sales report here. Okay, so I've got sales amount, cost, let's do profit and profit percentage on there. Okay, those are all of my numbers or my measures that I want to display. Well, how do I want to slice and dice those? Okay, because that's what a cube is great for. It's for very quickly retrieving data out of your system and slicing and dicing it so that you can analyze it, okay? Well, I've got sales amount numbers here. Let's break that down by items, by item group, okay? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click here. This is referred to as a hierarchy. This is also built into our data model. So I've automatically categorized all of the items that represent these sales numbers, and I've already categorized them by item group inside my cube. So you could see how fast that was when I selected that. Now, if I go over here and I expand these item groups, as you can see, the individual items are inside of those item groups, okay? Everything inside of here is available for drill down. So if there's transaction level detail behind here, if I double click, it's going to automatically bring up that transaction detail for me. Okay, so I can drill down to the actual invoice level here. Okay. But for right now, that's great. I've got that. What about what is my time frame that I'm looking for? Data is another hierarchy that's very, very useful. So I'm going to select that here. Date has a natural hierarchy built in, year, quarter, month, and day. Okay. So once I select that, as you can see, I've got my year up here. I can drill down into my quarter, into my month within that quarter, and then into the actual day. Okay. As you can see, the numbers are changing based on the level that I'm displaying. Okay. I can also do lots of other things. Maybe I want location as a slicer. Maybe I only want certain locations to be displayed. Very easy to do that here with a pivot table. Okay. So that's another way to do some ad hoc reporting, is through pivot tables connected to cubes. Okay. So now what I'd like to do is I want to show you a few examples of some some prepackaged reports that are already created, downloadable from our website. Let's go in, let's pull up a profit and loss statement here. I just want to show you some things. There we go. Okay, so this profit and loss statement, this is going to compare different time frames. Okay, I've got year-to-date actuals, I've got half-year actuals, and I've got full-year actuals on the right-hand side. I'm just going to go into design mode just to show you a couple of things about this report before I run it. Okay, so this is a financial report out of the finance module. Obviously, we need to feed it accounts or ranges of accounts that tells the system what information to retrieve, right? That's pretty basic stuff for a financial statement. This column B, this is where I'm doing that. So this is also where the power of Excel comes in, okay? So I've got these accounts listed here, or account ranges. I can very easily change the data that I'm displaying just by changing what's here, okay? So if I change that, that's going to change the information once I rerun it. It's going to change the information that's displayed within the report, okay? That does a few things for us. It makes it really easy to quickly see where we're getting our information from. It also makes it very flexible, very easy to write these reports. If you use cell referencing inside of your Excel, which is very common, it's very easy to write one line on a report and then just copy it down. And then using cell referencing, it's going to copy that information down and make it very easy, very quick to be able to run those reports, okay? Up here in these rows, 11, 12, and 13, I've got some dates that I'm referencing, okay? That's how I'm getting this functionality of the different time frames, you know, the year-to-date, the half-year, the full-year actuals, budget numbers, things like that. It's all referencing these rows up here. When I run the report, all I'm doing is I'm going to feed it one date, okay? It's going to take that date and it's going to propagate it within those rows, and then it's going to display the proper information referencing those dates and those account ranges that I showed you earlier, okay? So that's another example of how do we use the power of Excel, and how do we create like a financial report, okay? So a couple other examples here. This is one that I love. One of the things that I love about Jet Reports is its ability to be very, very flexible and build in functionality so that you don't have to duplicate effort, okay? This is one report that it just lists sales, but it allows me to list these sales by three different methods, okay? I can either list them by company, by item, or by customer, okay? So when I run this report, right now, as you can see, it's listing the sales by company. If I go in here to my detail level, I can change that detail level to customer. Now when I run it, it's going to list it by customer, item within customer, instead of item within company, okay? So just by changing one report parameter, it allowed me, I mean, basically this is 3 reports in one. It's all written into the same report, but just by changing that one parameter, it allows me to very quickly change the structure of the report and the information that I'm seeing. Okay. Oh, there's other types of reports that we can write. Here's an example of a dashboard type of report. This is going to go against the cubes again, but it's also going to allow me to kind of create one like central tab called the dashboard, but then I'm referencing several other pieces of information throughout the report. Okay, so I can click on the details tab here, sales by line of business, for instance. I can click on details here. It's going to go to kind of like a sub tab here, the sales by line of business tab. Again, I can drill down if I want to, all within this same sheet. And then when I'm ready to return to my dashboard, again, I can use these slicers to filter my data. I can return to that dashboard and kind of interact in that way. So you're still within Microsoft Excel using Jet Reports, but it's more of a visual type of experience for your end users. Okay. So up until now, I've been showing you the front end. So this is the end user experience of retrieving data. So what makes all of this tick in the background? And that's what I'd like to show you next. Okay. So we have something called the Jet Data Manager. Okay. The Jet Data Manager is referred to as an ETL automation tool. ETL stands for extract, transform, and load. So basically what we're doing is we're taking the data out of your AX database, which is very complex. Like I said, 6,000 to 7,000 different tables. We're taking that data, we're loading it into a staging area. We're doing some transformations on it. We're cleaning it up. We're changing the way that it looks. And then we're loading it into a set of data warehouse tables and cubes so that our end users are seeing that interface rather than that complex interface that runs your ERP system in the background. Okay. Some things that are important to note, especially with the IFRS 9 that you guys are talking about this morning. A lot of those parameters, a lot of those rates, those type of all of that logic, that can all be built into the backend data model now. So rather than relying on your end users to build that into Excel, using formulas and things like that, those are prone to mistakes or different interpretation maybe. You can build the logic into the data model in the backend so that you can be guaranteed that everybody is seeing the same factors, the same figures, and they're all using the same logic to come up with their reports. And that's referred to as data governance. Okay, so very easy to do here with the backend. Here's an example of those aging buckets that you saw on that report earlier. Here's some AR aging buckets that I created in a custom table here. These are all things that are defined on this backend. Okay. Here's my data source. This is what we're connecting to. We're connecting to an AX database here, but we're not restricted to that. Maybe you have more than one ERP systems. Maybe you have 5 different entities. Maybe they all have 5 different ERP systems. Who knows? Maybe you want to consolidate all that information. We can connect to pretty much anything as a data source. Okay. Right now I'm connected to an AX data source, but I can connect to anything SQL Server, any of these basic database formats. We've partnered with companies that create different drivers to connect to several different systems. We can connect to pretty much anything that you can imagine. Okay, we can even connect to like an Excel spreadsheet, treat that like pretend that that's a table, bring that into our system. That's a great way to interact with your end users. Maybe they fill in a factor or a date or something like that in an Excel spreadsheet, we can grab that data and incorporate it into your data warehouse very easily, okay? So this is our data source. Here's the customer table here. It's very easy to make changes here. Here's the customer table on the right. The fields that are included have check marks in them. If I want to include additional data points here, maybe my credit rating, all I have to do is tick that box and then deploy that change to my system, and then that's going to be available to my end users, okay? The staging area here, this is really where most of the heavy lifting happens. This is where we're taking our data, we're massaging it, we're cleaning it up, we're kind of marrying it together. If you have those multiple data sources that you're bringing in, maybe you want to combine them. Let's say maybe you have an old AX legacy system, and then you convert, maybe you upgrade to the latest version. Maybe that's a process that's going to take a couple of months or a couple of, or even longer. Maybe you want both of those online at the same time for reporting purposes. We can take that data and then merge it into the same data warehouse so that your reporting continues uninterrupted and it's accurate. Okay, we can report from both of those systems at the same time. Here's our data warehouse. These are all of those tables that you saw when I went into that browser earlier. Okay, so this is where that happens. So if I am correct, I should see a general ledger transactions table. Here it is. Okay, here are those fields that were inside of it. Okay, this is the data warehouse. Okay. The main takeaway here, and I don't want to get too technical here on everybody, but the main takeaway is the fact that you can design your data model here once. You can set it to automatic refresh, and so that your data is very current and very relevant. And then you can present to your end users one version of the truth. Okay, you have one set of data warehouse tables and fields and those cubes, and that data is going to be the same no matter who no matter who reports from it. Okay, so it's giving your end users the power to extract data out of the ERP system, but it's also allowing you to design how they look at it, making it user friendly and making it real easy for them to do that. Okay. It goes without saying, there's a full set of security model that goes along with this. You can secure this data very granularly. I can restrict who sees general ledger transactions, or maybe I want to restrict the sales transactions by sales manager. Okay, sales manager A can only see the transactions that are in that particular territory assigned to that sales manager. We can do things like that in the security model. That's all very easy to do. Okay, so that pretty much that's a very high level overview of the back end. But that's some of the key points that I usually cover. Aaron, did you want to? Were you taking it back, and were you going to show some Power BI examples, or?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. All
so
right, I'm going to stop sharing, and then you should be able to share
Right.
again.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. So yeah, hopefully you were able to see that just the kind of power that Jet can bring when we bring our data warehousing and cubes to the fold in conjunction with your AX data. One of the last things I just want to touch on, some of the more fun stuff. Everyone's talking about Power BI these days, about how they can use tools to enhance their visual experience, their reporting. Obviously, there's a lot of benefits to this. One, trend analysis becomes much easier to see patterns, to be able to see any kind of periodicity to the different your business cycles. And so using these tools before having a BI solution in place, it's quite cumbersome. Much like as you saw with the Jet Data Manager, you kind of have to extract and load that data just to be able to pull it into Power BI. So you have to pick which tables you want to bring into the fold, pick which linkages you want to assign to those, and really massage the data quite a bit before you can even get it into Power BI. Whereas with Jet Analytics, you can just sit it on top of the cubes because everything we do is built off the Microsoft stack. So they're going to work together seamlessly. Here's an example of one of our pre-built dashboards right out of the Finance Cube. You can see here, we have a whole range of different options with multiple slicers in here. And if I select these, usually it's just a simple matter of picking your visual that you'd like, checking a couple measures and dimensions, and bringing that data into the report. It can be really quick and easy to design these dashboards. I have another one right here built off of the inventory cube. Again, you see the data on the right, real simply laid out as measures and dimensions, which makes for a really natural reporting process where you can easily select a couple variables you want, select the kind of visual representation you want, and you can set up your dashboards in pretty quick order. Let's look at a fresh example. I'm going to go ahead and connect to Analysis Services, and we'll go ahead and hook this up to one of the cubes and see if we can put together a real quick dashboard before the top of the hour. So I go ahead and select the cubes. I'm going to go ahead and connect to a sales cube. And so we see on the right here, it automatically loads our measures and dimensions ready to go. So I didn't have to do any kind of work, any kind of setup. Again, the data is already prepared and ready for us to go. So I can just start selecting these visuals and building this out. So we'll go ahead and grab a visual. For this one, we'll break out, let's do sales by salesperson. Whoops. Tie it to that. We'll go ahead and do sales by salesperson. Let's go ahead and add another one. This time, let's see if we can identify any kind of patterns around seasonality. Maybe we'll find that certain products or sales professionals are more successful in certain parts of the year. Let's add one more where we can break this out by our different item categories. So we'll do, once again, we'll do sales. We'll split that out by item categories. And then Power BI has a lot of additional tools you can use. You aren't limited to just these kind of standard graphical elements. There's a lot of download templates, a lot of other data visualizations you can add into it. And then some really powerful ones like this map, for example. Maybe we want to look and see a good visual representation of where our customers are and really focus on which ones are the most profitable. So we can break them out by that. And then if I go ahead and expand these down, you saw in just real short order, just checking a few boxes as I went through and designed this, that we have a full-fledged dashboard built up here. We can now slice and dice this data. We can interact with it. If we want to break these out by different item categories, find out where in the world those are selling. Maybe we want to focus on specific salespeople. Whatever the case, we can now interact with this data. We can work with it. We can gain some insights into it that may not be immediately visible through your traditional reporting practices. And so it's not going to be a replacement for Excel or for reporting. You know, you're still going to have demands that are best captured in that environment, but it's a great additional tool to really help open the door and get more users familiar with the data and pull more insights from that information. And so I think that pretty much sums up what we can bring to the table. We have a pre-built data warehouse in cubes for AX that we can then hone in, custom tailor to fit your business's needs, pulling in the data you need, building in the calculations you need. So you have one version of truth across the whole organization that's accurate, it's governed, and it's going to set you up to more easily meet these compliance demands and help see the value that comes from having a full-fledged IFRS reporting practice and even adding dashboarding and data visualization as you're ready for that. And so thank you for your time. And with that in mind, I'll turn it back over to Steve to wrap up.
Okay, thank you very much, Aaron. I hope everybody enjoyed the presentation and that it more than just tickled their fancy. So at this stage, what we're going to do, we're just going to open the lines, maybe for those of you who may have some questions, whether on the IFRS report and its composition or on jet reporting. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you should see a chat icon. We'll just ask you just to type your question there, and then between Aaron, Matthew, and myself, we'll address it. And if we don't have the answer for you right away, we will definitely seek out the requisite answers and get it to you. So are there any questions? All right, so there are no further questions. So without any further ado, I'd like to, on behalf of Matthew and Aaron, representing Jet Global, thank you all. My name is Steve White, and on behalf of our Managing Director, Mr. Hector Negron of Optimus Business Transformation LLC, I want to thank you for your time, and I hope it was time well spent. And remember, if you have any other questions, you can reach out to Alejandro or to just send an email to operations@optimus.guru, and we'll be more than willing to meet with you and arrange for any further demonstrations or demos that you may need. So again, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. So have a great day. All right, Aaron, thank you very much. I really enjoyed those days working with you. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Will I be seeing you in Jamaica start of March? Are you going to be on the trip there? Okay. Well, thanks everyone. Think these went well. Looking forward to helping with anything else down the line. And I imagine I'll be seeing some of you folks out for the conference in early March. So I'm going to hop off, but thanks again and talk to you guys later.